Okay, now we have h of x divided by g of x. I'm going to write this a couple separate ways, and this is really going to take us into some territory that we're going to explore much more fully later in the semester. A lot of the stuff in this first unit is basically things that are introducing concepts that will be explored in much more depth. Okay, this is not correct because I need parentheses because I'm dividing the entirety of each of these. So there's your entire dividend, here's your entire divisor. And so you can write it like this, and that's fine. I'm going to write it as a fraction, and I think that's going to make it easier, and that is the way we're going to represent these later when we do these in their own separate unit. So x squared plus 12x plus 20 is all divided by x minus 8. H of x. Yep, that's right. Okay. And I want to go a little bit further with this, and now we're really getting into some review territory. We're going to factor. Now, if you're like, what are you talking about? Well, first of all, let's not factor the denominator because it doesn't factor. The numerator, however, does factor, and here's what that means. There are two binomials that multiply together, and if I multiplied them together, I would get this. Okay, now this is a hardcore review. Something times something gives me x squared. Let's go for the obvious. X times x would give me x squared, right? Yes, okay, fair enough. Let's grab a red pen. Now I gotta think, okay, two numbers multiply to give me 20. So let's come over here and start thinking of what they could be. Two numbers multiply to give me 20. Well, that could be 1 times 20. It could be 2 times 10. It could be 4 times 5. And those are my only options unless we start playing with fractions, and we're not gonna do that. Fractions, decimals, craziness. Let's not. So I want to pick the appropriate ones that would make this work if I multiplied this, what's going to be a binomial, times this, that's going to be a binomial. So x times x is x squared, and this times this, let me point more appropriately here, more directly. This times this is going to give me 20. Well, now I've got to be able to get a 12 out of this deal as well, and that's going to happen by saying, okay, well, let's multiply these two together. Let's multiply those two together, and they're going to be like terms, so they're going to add. So here's the short version of it. What multiplies to give me 20, we have a list, that also adds to give me 12. Well, if I added 1 and 20, I'd get 21. Okay. If I add 2 and 10, I'd get 12. Found it. If I added 4 and 5, I'd get 9. So this is the one I want. And everything was positive. So we're not going to play with any negatives right now in this problem. So plus 2. And plus 10. Okay, why did I do that? Because maybe, just maybe, I'd be able to reduce this fraction and cancel a factor out, and I can't. This one does not cancel. Now, you might say, well, I could cancel this x with this x. No, you can't. They're not factors, okay? Now, you'll see where this is going. If you're like, whoa, it's been a while since I did that, just hang with me for a second. Let's do the next one. F of x divided by j of x. So here's your f of x divided by j of x, and this is incorrect. Let's fix it. We're dividing the entirety of it. And if you want to skip this step and jump straight to here, that's fine too. Okay, and I'm going to go a little further, and we're going to factor. The denominator does not, the numerator does, and there's an entire lesson devoted to this later, an entire unit that goes really into depth with this. So I'm going to factor that numerator. It's going to look like that right there. Okay, so I need to be able to, let's grab some things in point. I need to multiply those two terms together and get x squared. Well, the best way to do that is x times x. I need to be able to multiply those two together and get a negative 16. Okay, well, if I want to multiply and get a negative 16, then, well, let's explore our options. So I need two numbers that multiply to give me negative 16. And if I multiply to get a negative, then my signs had better be different. So negative 1 times 16, 1 times negative 16. We could do that. We could do negative 2 times 8. We could do 2 times negative 8. We could do negative 4 times 4, and then reversing that changes nothing. Okay, same idea we just had a minute ago where I would say, okay, if I multiply these two, I'd get negative 16. Okay, fine. But then if I multiplied those, and then I multiplied those, I'd get some like terms that would add, or subtract, you could say, and give me negative 6. So let's really add, and try to get a negative 6 out of these. Negative 1 plus 16 is 15. That's not negative 6. 1 plus negative 16 is negative 15. That's not negative 6. Negative 2 plus 8 is 6. We're getting there. 2 plus negative 8 is negative 6. We found it, and this would be 0 if you added negative 4 plus 4. Okay, we just found it, which means I will put x plus 2 and x minus 8. Now, something does cancel. I hope you see it now. So we factored in this one and nothing canceled. We factor in this one and something does cancel. And the thing that does cancel, the factor, more appropriately I should say, the factor that cancels is x plus 2. Factors are things that are multiplied together, and this entire quantity of x plus 2 was multiplied by the entire quantity of x minus 8. And therefore, we can cancel it. If you want to get really technical, what it really means is this goes into itself one time, and you're going to have like 1 times this, and it's over 1. Well, dividing by 1 changes nothing.